Why should we care about early church fathers? First of all, knowing the history of your faith, knowing what it looked like in its earliest practices, what the root beliefs were, what the beliefs were, and how they evolved into whatever you believe now, that's incredibly important. Second of all, early church fathers can give us a very good insight in how to interpret scripture. See, the biggest problems that I saw in evangelical churches was the varying theology and the varying interpretations of scripture, especially concerning salvific issues like baptism. However, when looking at early church fathers, especially those with a direct line to the apostles themselves, like Clement of Rome, who was taught by Peter and Paul, Ignatius of Antioch and Polycarp, who were both taught by John, we can look at their writings and we can see an insight into deeper interpretations of what the apostles wrote about and what they meant when they wrote these things. These are things across the board: baptism, marriage, the Eucharist, the divinity of Christ, Marian dogmas, the papacy. We can see all these things root back to the early church. Although there was debate amongst the early church fathers, which causes the need for councils, these are still very important things to look into when studying the faith deeper. Instead of you, 2,000 years after these gospels were written, trying to interpret them for yourselves, you should look to the people who were taught by the apostles themselves, who were taught by the people who penned the letters that are in the Bible, and see what they were taught and what they wrote. Now, we do not hold these letters as infallible. Clement of Rome, Ignatius of Antioch, Polycarp, all these people, their letters are not infallible. However, when looking into your beliefs, if you can look and find your beliefs rooted in the early church, that's a very good sign, especially things that were unanimously agreed upon, like baptism. And even things besides that, like the Eucharist, like the divinity of Jesus, we can see a direct line in how to interpret Scripture because these people were taught by the people who penned Scripture. They were taught by the apostles. They were taught by the people who saw Jesus face to face. Again, Peter, the first pope, Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament, John, who wrote Revelation and was the longest living apostle, we can look at all of these people and see what they taught their disciples. And again, this is incredibly important in interpreting Scripture because rather than looking at your own beliefs 2,000 years later, we can look to see what the original interpretations were from the people who had a direct source to the apostles.